Lunatics, welcome back to the channel. I'm glad you clicked on this video to check out how to catch more fish when they're schooling on shad, when they're busting the surface. It's incredibly easy to catch these fish sometimes, and it can also be incredibly tough. In today's video, I'm going to go over different tactics that are going to help you catch more of these fish. As always, bait selection is a key when it comes to catching this fish schooling. Sometimes they'll eat hard topwater baits, sometimes they won't. Around me, a lot of the times they will not eat the hard topwater baits, and I have to finesse them. So because there's a lot of variety in different places, you're going to use different baits, I'm going to go into different tactics that aren't specific to baits that are going to help you catch a lot more of these fish. So I'm going to cover 7 different topics that I think are vital to your success chasing these schooling fish. No matter what bait, no matter what presentation you're using, all of these different tactics are going to apply. In this fall transition time of year, these bass can be out in open water, not on the bank, not positioned on cover, so we need to be aware of what's going on. We need to be scanning all the time, because if we're out fishing and we miss the opportunity to go chase these schooling fish, we're missing out on active feeding fish that we can catch. Some of these fish are the easiest fish to catch of the year, but other times they're very tough. But the rest of these steps that we're going to go to are going to be vital for your success catching these fish. But the first thing you need to be doing is constantly scanning, constantly looking around, always paying attention to what's going on around you. Even when you're fishing the bank, don't be afraid to be looking out into that open water, seeing if they're schooling, because if those fish are schooling out there, that's where you need to be. That's what you need to be focusing on. Now, one boil here and there is not what I'm talking about. When you see those wolf packs out there and they're busting on shad pretty good, that's where you need to be, because those fish are a lot of times very catchable. The next thing that I think is really important when you're out chasing these schooling fish is you have to be listening for them. We obviously can't see anything behind us. We can only see what's in front of us. We can only scan, 180 degrees or maybe a little bit further than that, but we can't see what's behind us, so we have to be listening for those blow-ups, because a lot of times those fish are moving around, they're moving all over the place, and we have to be listening. I can't tell you how many fish I've caught because I heard the fish break the surface, I heard them bust on that bait, and I turned around, casted to those fish, was able to catch a fish that I otherwise wouldn't have caught. A lot of guys are fishing with music on, they're fishing with headphones in, having conversations on the phone, and if these fish are schooling like that, shut that stuff off, because you are going to miss fish that you could be catching. So the next tactic that I think is very important is being quiet. Being quiet on the water when you're fishing for these schooling fish can be very difficult. Sometimes we've got that trolling motor turned all the way up and we're trying to get from one spot to another spot. The fish broke over there. We need to hurry up and get there to make the cast on them. You have to do what you have to do, but when you get into an area where you think those fish are, you think they're within that casting distance, that's when you want to be as quiet as possible. Don't get on that trolling motor unless you need to. Don't make a lot of noise around the boat. Try not to pick up a bunch of new baits or retie things, drop tackle boxes or anything like that. Be quiet, because I really think that sometimes being loud on the boat or having that trolling motor going can spook the bait that those fish are trying to go after and move them further away from your boat. But I also think sometimes you can spook those bass, because once you get around there and you're making casts on them and you're catching fish, they know you're there, but they're still focused on that bait. And if you're making a lot of noise, those bass might know you're there and then move away from that bait, or that bait's going to move away and take those bass with them. This next tactic is going to help us no matter what type of fishing we're doing, but it's immeasurably important when you're fishing for these schooling fish. But casting accuracy is vital when you're fishing for these schooling fish, because you need to get that bait as close to the blow up as possible. There's times when those fish will chase a little bit outside of that boil, but sometimes they will not eat that bait unless it is directly on top of where they broke the surface of the water. So casting accuracy is vital. The more accurate you can be and the quicker you can be to getting that bait on top of where that fish broke, the more fish you are going to catch. Something else that I found is really important with these schooling fish is varying your retrieve. Not all the fish are going to want the same thing. Sometimes they're going to want it slow. Sometimes they're going to want it fast. Sometimes they're going to want it very, very erratic, where you're reeling it really fast, stopping it, reeling it really fast, stopping it. Sometimes it's a lot of rod twitches, stopping it. You need to vary the retrieve, because fish to fish, they can act different. From this group of fish chasing this group of bait to another one, they could want something completely different. So when you're fishing for these schooling fish, you need to vary your retrieve, because not all the fish are going to want the exact same thing. Sometimes it's a slow roll with a swim bait. Sometimes it's very erratic, like I said. So make sure to be varying your retrieves, experiment, and you'll find out what those fish want. A lot of times there is a certain cadence that these fish want, and you'll be able to catch multiple fish doing the same thing, but sometimes it'll switch within a minute. One fish wants it this way, another fish wants it another way. So make sure to be varying your retrieves to figure out what each in particular fish wants. Something else that's really important with these schooling fish is do not be afraid to finesse these fish. Sometimes you're gonna have to break out that spinning rod, that light line, those super light baits, those super small baits, because they're keyed in on super small bait fish. You need to match the hatch, and there's just times where they're not gonna come up and commit to that walking bait. They're not gonna commit to that popper. They're not gonna commit to a whopper popper. They're not gonna commit to that buzz bait, and you need to finesse these fish. Do not be afraid to get a little tiny swim bait, little tiny flatworm, a little tiny soft jerk bait, something like that to get these fish to commit. It's not always about getting that heavy topwater bait and bomb casting as far as you can. If they're willing to eat that, that's a great bait to use because you can make long casts with them. You're gonna be able to cast a lot farther than that small, light bait that you're gonna be fishing on that spinning rod. But sometimes that's what it takes to get these fish to go, so do not be afraid to finesse these fish. So one very important tactic when it comes to chasing these schooling fish is be patient. A lot of times people are going to be fishing for these fish, they're casting on these boils, these fish are blowing up and they're not catching them, and they take off because, oh, these fish don't want to eat, or I can't catch them on this bait, so if they're not eating that bait then I'm not going to be able to catch them, or they stop busting for a little bit and people take off. You need to be patient. These fish are going to come up and then they're going to go back down. They're going to come up and they're going to go back down. You need to be patient while you're out there fishing for these fish. You also need to wait till you see those blowups. I can't tell you how many times I've been fan casting blindly, no blowups or anything going on, and a fish blows up near my boat, and if I didn't have my bait out in the water, I would have been able to cast directly to that boil and catch fish. I literally do not make casts 99% of the time when I'm chasing these schooling fish unless I see a fish come up to the surface and blow up. Now, if there's long lulls or something like that, I will make a few fan casts and fish blindly out there. Maybe if I can't get to a blow up soon enough, I'll cast after those fish have already kind of gone back down and see if I can get a straggler or something like that. But 99% of the time, I am waiting for those fish to blow up. I'm waiting to see them come out of the surface to bust on that bait. Sometimes it's a little minor slurp or something like that, but you're visually seeing, you're hearing what's going on. You find that boil, you find that blow up, and then you're casting on those fish, because like I said, a lot of times you're going to be blind casting out there and you're not going to be able to reel that bait back in quick enough after you see them blow up and get that bait on there. Those fish have already gone back down and you don't end up catching as many fish as you could have if you just would have been patient and waited for those fish to come up and then target where they are at in that moment. As you can see, guys, there's a ton of variables when it comes to chasing these fish that are schooling on shad in this fall transition time of year, but the fishing can be absolutely epic, and if you use these tactics that I mentioned in today's video, you are going to catch more of these fish. And make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and make sure to like today's video. I'd really appreciate it. Any questions or anything like that, leave them down in the comment section. Let me know what your favorite bait is to throw on these schooling fish. And I'm also going to put the playlist up for my Lake Havasu event that I had recently back in September, and then there's going to be another video that YouTube thinks that you're going to like, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya!